period of suspension is at an end. We are now back in session.
No.
We're doing over.
Order number 3, sir. In the name of the Senator, the Honourable K. McConney, to move the passing of a resolution to approve the Public Service General Order 2020.
Mr. President, as I rise to move the passing of this resolution, I respectfully ask this honorable chamber that we treat items 3 and items 4 together as they both relate to similar public orders.
The question is that items number 3 and 4 be treated as near cousins, a cognate debate, and that we proceed on that basis. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it, and you may so proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I beg to move the resolution to approve the Public Service General Order 2020 and the resolution to approve the Public Service Teachers Amendment Order 2020. These orders, Mr. President, are part of the fabric of the public service that provides for all to see and to refer to a list of all the established posts that are within the public service and the teaching service. Temporary posts, in many cases, Mr. President, certainly in the public service, have been the subject of much concern for persons who have been in temporary posts, existing in these posts for an inordinate amount of time, longer than some would believe they should have been, and that in some ways the rules suggest that they ought not to have been. This government, being the kind of government who likes to clean things up the best we can, this is also a part of the cleanup of that effort. And sir, this is part of the job that was left undone by a previous administration, and we are continuing to ensure that people who are occupying temporary posts are able to see some benefits from those posts being established and being recorded as part of the public orders, both the public service orders general as well as teachers' amendments. In these resolutions, sir, the establishment of posts will be over 200, close to 300 posts that will be established. These public orders also consider the redesignation of posts. Over 138 posts will be redesignated, and these posts reflect, this redesignation may reflect posts that were transferred when departments were removed. There may also be posts that were redesignated as another post. So for example, you had clerical officers being redesignated as customs officers 3, for example. Also, these public orders consider posts that have been abolished. For various reasons, the public service from time to time will abolish posts. Some are no longer relevant to the operations of ministries. Some ministries choose to give up certain posts in lieu of getting another. And sometimes the functions are transitioned, in some cases, from ministries into statutory agencies as well. So there are many reasons why posts may be abolished. In addition, these public orders, sir, also consider corrections, omissions, and errors that may have been in previous public service orders that will need to be dealt with. Certainly for the teachers, in the teacher's order, which is item number 4, you will notice, sir, that it suggests that all persons who were in posts as of December 31st, 2007, would be deemed to be appointed as at that date, December 31st, 2007, and all of the benefits that would have accrued to them from that time will then be addressed. Mr. President, sir, you know that there are several benefits that will accrue to those persons who will now be in established posts. You know that there's an improved security of tenure, so they really know now we're in a permanent appointed post within government, and that gives greater job security for some, greater peace of mind. There is economic enfranchisement, Mr. President. As you know, number of financial institutions refuse to extend certain facilities to persons who still are considered to be temporary. And indeed, having that appointment could certainly put them in better stead to improve their standard of living, to access the facilities of various financial institutions. In addition, the NIS benefits, their contributions will decrease, and there's more take-home pay in their hands as this situation is made more permanent. There's also more consistency in payment, Mr. President. I'm sure you may have heard stories where temporary workers had to wait for authority to come down from various places, and sometimes that authority came so late that some people were not paid for months. Certainly now, with the establishment of these posts, the consistency in payment of salary would be regularized, and embarrassing situations that some people sometimes found themselves in because they did not get paid on time can also be alleviated. In addition, sir, these temporary posts now being established and the persons in them being able to benefit can improve leave conditions. For example, sir, appointed officers in those established posts are eligible for 21 days sick leave. And that is compared to what the situation was with the temporary workers who were eligible only for 14 days. In addition, they are eligible for different types of leaves now when they are part of an established post, whether it is no pay leave, half pay leave, special leave, or other types of leaves. And so, sir, I shared all of this to say that the establishment of these posts, more than 200, almost 3, I believe, that this will certainly impact the lives of a significant number of persons who have been long suffering in temporary posts for a period of time. And sir, this is, as I said, a simple part of the fabric of the public service. It is something that happens. We make adjustments and amendments to these orders. And so with these few words, I beg to move that these resolutions pass. That I am told that I am to break the resolutions up into 2. So I beg to move the passing of the resolution to approve the Public Service General Order 2020.
I recognize Senator Franklin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I was almost tempted to say I second that. But you don't second resolutions from ministers, so I'll have to follow the rules.
That is the depth of your support.
Pardon?
Reflecting the depth of your support.
Yes, sir. I'll tell you why, sir. Very early, when the Prime Minister took office, she had meetings with the unions. And you see, one of the customs officers, I was at a meeting and I proposed that these customs officers be designated, because they were all clerical officers working as customs officers, meaning they were being short paid because they were doing customs work and getting paid at the clerical officer level. And also the security, because if somebody gets vexed with you and say transfer to education, you cannot transfer a customs officer from customs unless he asks for it or unless he approves. So this gives them security and it gives them a career path. And as when the Prime Minister understood the message, very quickly said, yes, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it, and she did it right away. And I thanked her before, and I'm thanking her again now, because at the implementation, the public servants who went to implement the Prime Minister's decision made them temporary posts. It was never the Prime Minister's wish or intention to make these posts temporary posts, but people at the level of the civil service couldn't help but try to frustrate the process by making them all temporary posts. So you have a set of posts of 200 clerical officers, and you said, well, we're going to get rid of those clerical officers, and they were all established posts, and then you can change them from established posts into temporary posts. That was not fair to the customs officers, and it did not give them the kind of security that they were looking for, because they were then still in the public service as such, clerical officers, but acting in temporary posts. So I you know, it isn't often where I say thank you, Prime Minister, but I will say so now. She listened, and she has done what she has promised. So when she does well, I will say so. And this time, sir, she certainly has lived up to my expectations. But she is in the process of cleaning up some messes, lots of them, that were created. And a lot of people say by the last administration. It was the last administration. It was created by some senior, by the more senior people in the public service. Because, just trust me when I tell you, when you look at the public service orders, especially the general order that we're dealing with now, it is not something that a person outside of the civil service, and generally a lot of times, people who are in the civil service, they don't understand it. So the ministers take advice, and they expect the advice that they get should be good advice, and they sign off on it. In this case, we have, with the customs officer, sorry, the Prime Minister made a decision, but the implementation was not what the Prime Minister had agreed at the meeting. The Prime Minister don't implement. She makes a decision and leave it to the civil servants to implement. Mind you, now it has been corrected, because I have been fighting it from then, and I can't say till now, because here it is, I don't have a fight anymore. So those customs officers now have a sense of security. You plan your career as a customs officer, and you could have ended up now working at National Insurance, at the markets, because somebody get vexed with you and transfer you. No, that can't happen because of this order. So I am very grateful to the Prime Minister, and I'm sure these other officers in the customs especially are grateful. But there's a category of persons who I'm still worried about. In December 2007, the government, one of their last acts in office was to pass the Public Service Act. And they proclaimed it on the 31st of December 2007. And that act said, let me pass it. Oh yeah, here we go. Too far. That act said, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not reading, that persons who were temporary officers and they were qualified for the job, and they had been in these posts for 3 years prior to the commencement of the act, and the act was commenced, as I said, on the 31st of December 2007, were entitled to be appointed, because the minister cannot appoint anybody. So so the act then set the things in motion for the service commissions to implement. Also, at section 13.5, it said all those temporary posts that existed for a similar period are hereby established. So you have all the posts established and all the officers that were supposed to be in them. what happened? We ended up with about 200 people not being appointed, even though you said all. But you want to know why? Some senior civil servants who will remain nameless for the time being, one just retired, so I'm going to call the name now. Took people who were supposed to be appointed off the list and put in his wife and some other people. So if you had all appointed, all should be appointed, but then you end up now with 200 left out. So where are the 200 other posts that should be, that was included in the all? Those were people who were not qualified to be appointed, but had friends. So what the Prime Minister has done now is to fix that problem that was created by civil service, I was going to say corruption and public life. but you see, no. There are rules for dealing with them, but you're not dealing with them. You had a situation where government had policy that says all. They passed legislation that said all. And the civil service said some. And so we had people who even went to court to be appointed, one of whom I consider to be a good friend of mine as a teacher. They sent him home, you know, because they had no more post for him, even though he was qualified under the Act. He's not home, still home. And the case has stretched on from 2009 till now, with all kinds of obstructions going on in the place. And civil service people fighting against what the law says, even though they acknowledge in their documents that he's entitled to be appointed. He's entitled to be appointed, they refused to appoint him, they sent him home nonetheless, and said they got no post for him. But he was included in the all. And you have civil servants who have filed affidavits that I cringe at because they don't make a lot of sense, but they're fighting because they decide that he's not supposed to work. Mind you, this is not what the law says. This is what they determine. For whatever reason, they don't like him or whatever. Happens to one of the best teachers they got in Barbados, but he can't find a job in the public service because, and the thing is, he is entitled to be appointed, and the case is still in court. I want to know what I can do now. Know that the Prime Minister has now come and established the post that he was in. They can't say he had no post. I hope that the Solicitor General and whoever else responsible for dealing with these matters decide, well, let me stop this foolishness. Because it is foolishness. They're putting burdens on people unnecessarily. Right? So we have a situation where all the posts were established and all the people then should have been appointed, but all did not equal to all. Because we are now fixing 208 or some of this, or almost 300, I don't know how much it is really. But I'm sure those public officers are grateful. And they waited from 2007 till now. That is no mean feat. You know what that means? That from 2007 till now, they were paying national insurance at the higher rate for all those years because they were treated as temporary officers, even when the law says they were not. Because, and let me explain the higher rate. Persons who are appointed in the public service do not pay for sickness benefits because the government has guaranteed that you will be entitled to sickness benefit for up to a year. If you have the doctor certificate to prove it, then you can get an extension of sick leave for a year. And national insurance pays you for a year as well. So it doesn't make sense paying national insurance to get sick leave and then also getting the full salary from government. So you'll be getting a full salary plus 66 2/3% for sick leave from national insurance. So a government in its wisdom, when national insurance was implemented, decided, well, look, since public service already guaranteed their full salary for a year, they're not going to be paying for that portion. They don't pay for unemployment benefits either. So hence, they pay a smaller amount than people in the private sector or on temporary officers. So those people who have waited, those 200 plus people who have waited from 2007 till now, have paid more national insurance, but you know they can't go back national insurance for it. Because national insurance only give you back money for 2 years. So if they keep your appointments for all these years, national insurance will only give you back for the last 2 years. So you remember 2007, this isn't even 2017, you know? So you understand how much money they would have paid that they will not be able to recover because of persons in the public service who think that the place belongs to them. You have to fight for what you are entitled to. That doesn't make sense to me. It gives me too much work. You know, I had to actually put cases in court. And I'm going to tell you something about this thing. I get a bit troubled by the attitude that Barbadians have. A young lady came to see me. She was entitled to be appointed. So I said, well, look, let me put this matter in court and get a decision. And she agreed. So I made an appointment with the lawyer, and the lawyer said, on the wait for half an hour and get on the internet. When I get tired of waiting, I called, and she said, you know, if I do that, it will victimize me. I said, we think they don't even know. You know? But that's a Barbadian lady, you know. The other case that they put in court was for a lady who drew her first breath in Jamaica. She was entitled to be appointed too. And she signed on the dotted line though. And as soon as the case got in court, public officers that went to court to represent the government told the judge, we can appoint a ma'am. Less than 2 weeks, and that was in the official gazette. Because they knew they were wrong. But the Bajans refused to fight for their rights in Barbados. And we had Jamaica and the solution who decided that they're going to go to court. You see the problem here? Bajans are too afraid for their own shadows. These
can't fight the government.
Yeah, you can't fight the government. These people who, as I said, drew their first breaths in other countries, they said they're going to go to court and succeeded. Barnes, a teacher at Queen's College, and she was able to get her appointment after years because they were playing the fool and they were appointed her. And they were not appointing her because they said, General Order 22, it says, as a general rule, only persons of Barbadian nationality will be appointed permanently in the public service. It didn't say only persons of Barbadian nationality. It says as a general rule. So it means there must be exceptions to the rule because you put that little clause in there. And the people at the Personal Administration Division, no public service, no Ministry of Public Service, keep insisting that only persons of Barbadian nationality should be appointed. That is not what the law says. That is not what the general order said. But I keep telling them this is not law. This is English comprehension. But when, you know, if you don't have English comprehension, you can't understand law either. So that's the problem. So people continue to suffer because, and now they're telling me they have to have permanent residence or citizenship if they're born outside of Barbados. There's nothing in the law that says that. But that is what they're doing to public officers or people who work for the government. Mind you, if you look at the Barbados Citizenship Act, it says if you work for the government for 7 years, I think, you're entitled to citizenship. So you're entitled to citizenship, but immigration got it holder, and you can't get a point of service because somebody at the personal administration decides that, we are going to put a policy in place that conflicts with the law, and deny you your appointment. These are all excesses in the public service, but people who like to ruin people's lives. Now, another aspect, this Public Service Act that was passed, that was brought into force 31st December 2007, says no established office in the public service, this section 1311, shall remain vacant for more than a year. But we have people who are acting in established offices for 14 years. You know, and they refuse to appoint the people. But they are breaking the law. You see, the problem here comes when there is a law that says you must do X, but there's no punishment when you don't comply. So you breach the law, and there is no sanction when you breach it. So you will have people working 10, 14 years doing their job and doing it well. From the reports that they get at the end of the year, you're doing a good job. But you know what happens? Because that person is temporary, every 3 months, you have to send out some document that says that they're going to give them a new contract, whatever. And if it don't come on time, they don't get paid on time. That's what Senator McConney was alluding to earlier. So people have been working for 10 years, and then all of a sudden, you can't get your money when the month comes. And this is nothing that the law says. This is something that civil servants have put in place to keep people on edge. Because when you have a fellow who is temporary, he goes to the credit union, he goes to the bank, and he says, I want to put on something for the house. And he gets a letter from them saying he's a temporary officer. Hey, people, when the banks know what temporary officer mean, in their terms, because they've got temporary people working for them, so they know the public can go home anytime. But you have people in the public service that are temporary for a long time. I was a public officer for 10 years, was never appointed. Damn good one too, but I was never appointed. But that is the nature of the game. And the law has outlawed that, but the civil service have continued to do it despite what the law says. That is section 1311 if people want to follow me in the Public Service Act. But it goes further. In the Recruitment and Employment Code, if you look at note 7, let me go to note 7 because it would be better if I read it for you, because people don't believe me when I tell them these things. Recruitment and Employment Code. This is the first schedule to the Public Service Act, note 7. It says here, in order to give managers flexibility to meet short-term needs sensibly and economically, recruitment to appointments up to 12 months may be carried out without open competition if personnel from within the organization are filling such vacancies. If there is any possibility that staff may be needed for more than 12 months, or if the vacancy is being filled by external recruitment, then the procedure for full, fair, and open competition should be used at the outset. So a person retires from the public service, so you know that there's a vacancy. You don't need to fill that temporarily, because the act says you must do it at the outset. But they keep people in post for years as temporary officers. All that does is to frustrate them, and then you know what happens. The person that's acting in this post now for all the years, even though they should be appointed, mind you, some is the only person that qualified to be in the post. So they send one of the cousins to go and do a course. And the cousin go and do the course, and then they arrange interviews. And you know who get the job? The cousin, who just qualified, because you know got the qualifications. Happens all over the place, particularly in health, particularly in the Ministry of Health. It happened at the senior level at the psychiatric hospital.
What's the role of the Public Service Commission in all
The Public Service Commission are what used to be rubber stampers. they represent what the present administration put before them, because they're part-time people. They come in on a Monday morning and people put papers in front of them and they talk a little over them and do what is required. We need.
I had long argued that the chairman should be full-time.
Yeah, that has been promised. A full-time chairman has been promised to the Public Service for years, but nobody has implemented it, and they are being deceived. You know, I remember some years ago I was representing a young lady, and because of the level that she was at, it was a disciplinary offense, and she was at a senior level, so her case was being held, but being conducted by the commission itself. And I turned to the chairman of the commission, who I considered a friend, and I called him by name, and I said, "But I share me who you know." I said, I wrote you about this matter 6 months ago, and you refused to do it, you know, and you let reach this point. He said, "Caswell, I ain't getting nothing from you." I said, "We're talking about I wrote you," and I pull up my letter and show it to him. He turned to the secretary there and said, You get this? She said, "We got it for filing 6 months." Commission never saw it. But the commission made the decision that they wanted me because the commission didn't have the information. 6 months. When he saw my letter, they dismissed the case, and the lady went back to work. But that's what happens. And then, you know, when you change the commission, you know, they got a period where they don't know anything at all, and that's when most relatives get in. That's when most relatives get in. And it can happen now because you got a new commission. So a lot of things can go past them and then can never happen. Over the years, we have had this problem. And when you catch them, nobody's enforcing the rules against them. And that's the problem, you know. You need to discipline. There's a whole set of rules in here for discipline. Look, the Code of Conduct and Ethics, paragraph 5, if my memory serves me correctly, 5C. Let me find it because I don't want to mislead. It says, officers shall, A, B, C, not deceive or knowingly mislead ministers, parliament, permanent secretaries, or the public. The Code of Discipline says that this is a major offense if you do that. A major offense is one for which you can be dismissed. Have you heard of any senior public officer who tricked the minister? What they do is transfer them to someplace else. Nobody disciplining them. So that is why you have to come here with other legislation and try to hold them. They've got laws already in place. Deal with them at that level. And I'm sure, you know, Napoleon said to inspire the troops, you shoot a general. They just go shoot a PS. And the rest will fall into line.
Who fires the gun?
You have to. No, you see, you have to bring the charges. You can't say that they're going to succeed, and you want to, because right now under the Public Service Act, a different regime came about under this new Public Service Act, mind you, and they're still timing. They're still messing it up because people don't know. You have situations where we have public officers who have been working now 4 or 5 years, not working, who have been home working 4 or 5 years on full pay. They are suspended for offenses because the head of the department don't like them, and the head of the department was given the power to suspend on full pay. But when you suspend somebody on full pay in the private sector, you work the case off in a week because you don't want to pay that much money. But 4 or 5 years. I remember one of my members who was suspended for 4 years and months. When they did the investigation, they didn't even bring charges to tell him to come back to work. He called me the Sunday morning. He said, "Mr. Randall, tell me can't work today. What to do?" I said, but you gotta go back to work. He said, man, you warm so long, how you feel get warm? So I said, but no, you gotta go back to work. The people there come back to work, you gotta come back to work. You getting paid for the last 5 years? He said, man, I know what I can do. He's a nurse. So he said, so I had a uniform for 4 years, so I can tell the man got a uniform, so he come with whatever you got. You know? But he and his boss went to school together and had problems from school days. So he get the opportunity to suspend him stupidly, and he did it. Cost the public servant salary at the level staff nurse for 5 years, almost 5 years. And nothing happened to the head of the department who did it. Nothing. And he has done it consistently. He got about 4 or 5 people I know that he's done it to, and people are being paid. This is the public service that we got, and nobody is doing anything about it. He don't like you. You suspend for something stupid. And then you then have to hire a substitute to work for the person who sent home. And then you pay 2 salaries for the price of 1. 2 salaries for 1 post. Because only the commission can stop the pay after you've been dismissed. But they can suspend you, the commission can suspend you for 6 months on half pay. But then after that, if the case continues for more than 6 months, they're going to restore the pay to full pay, and you can continue. So people say, well, okay, I'm here full pay, I can sit down and enjoy it. So these are the problems that we are having in the public service, and we are having them precisely because we have people who will not be disciplined, or people who will not discipline them. The problem is discipline. I wanted to go to say something about. I heard a news report where, from the other place, where they were saying that these officers, this government made one error and established one post and incorrectly, and the other people did for did hundreds. That is not necessarily correct. It is precisely because the officers who are supposed to implement do not implement. You have...
You're speaking now about teachers? Or?
No, I'm teaching about both teachers and other public officers. The minister responsible for the public service can create temporary posts. Under Section 14, I think it's Section 14 of the Act. Yes, it is. It says, subject to subsection 2, the minister may create temporary offices in the public service for a period of not more than 3 years. So the minister signs off on a post for 3 years. It goes on to say that the minister can then extend it for a further 3 years, but no more. So at the end of 6 years, and you still have that temporary post, the post must be established. It says, here, and it says, where the minister is satisfied, either during the existence or of a temporary office or at the end of the period for which it was created, that it is necessary that the office be established, the minister shall, not if he feels like, the minister shall make an order for the establishment of the office. But how can you blame any government where you think the minister can remember which office he created temporarily? That's for the public officers to do. So after 3 years, you extend it for 3 years, and then after the second 3 year period, the minister, this time a different minister, so he ain't gonna know. So his public officers have to bring to his attention, or in this case her attention, that the office should be established. But it doesn't happen. So people are now working in offices where there's really no authority, because the minister can't give you more than 6 years. But you continue to be paid in that office some, and the lady talked about earlier for 14 years from the Ministry of Agriculture, she was in one of those such offices for 14 years. And then when they were making the cutbacks in the office, making people, lay off people, they said, well, she's a temporary officer, and sent you home. Temporary after 14 years? And they sent her home. Now that matter has been in court now for a number of years, because this was one of these 2014 layoffs, not the most recent ones. And the civil servants, they said they can still fight it. And they fight it, they get the files held in court, when the case called, they can't find the file, all kind of things they do, because, you know, they got their friends in the registry. So when the people in the registry, you can't find the file. Now, all you have to do is to file it to, the name is Franklin, you put it under G. Never find it. And you look and you look and you look and you look, case can't come off. That is some of the tactics that they use to ill-treat public officers. This nonsense has to stop. And the people who are responsible for implementing these decisions of the government, when they refuse to implement them or when they refuse to follow the law, there should be consequences. But there are no consequences. You don't suffer for your bad behavior. So as a result, you do what you like. But when you do what you like, it is hurting somebody else. Somebody that looks like you. Somebody that born in the same district as you. Went to the same school as you. Have the same born under the same circumstances. But you don't care. I'm a big boy in public service. No, so I ain't gonna care about you. There need to be accountability. They need to account for their actions. They work me too hard. And I can assure you they work Senator Moore too hard. Because we have to go and fight for things that, there's a problem. You can't believe that somebody will elevate something as trivial as this to an issue or to a problem. So you have to sit down and have a meeting. But because there are no consequences, people get away with it and they continue to do it. But worse yet, you train somebody next to you who refuse to pick up the law and read it. So they learn your bad behaviors. So you then come and implement what you were taught. What you were taught is not what the law says. And you have to fight it every time. I have a case where posts are bracketed in the public service, meaning that let's say you have customs officer 3 and 4. They're just bracketed, so that means there are 208 now. So that means there can be 208 3s or 208 4s or any combination to make 208. In circumstances where you're moving from one grade to the next, and there's nothing in the qualification order that says that you have to get a particular qualification or anything like that, people still insist that they've got to give you a good report. And if you don't get a good report, they keep you at that level ad infinitum. There is nothing in the law that says they can do it. Case in point, Principal Crown Counsel and Senior Crown Counsel in the Attorney General's office. To be a Senior Crown Counsel, you have to be in the service, you have to have 5 years call. You qualify for a Principal Crown Counsel at 7 years call. There is nothing between there other than years call. But they are insisting that you have to get a good report from your head of department or whatever. The law does not say that. If it did, then so be it. But in order to put that in place and determine how the commission, it is not a question of the commission or anything. It isn't even a promotion. It is a moving on. It's a progression. Thank you very much. It is a progression. But no, they put rules in place of their own making. They don't make rules. We make rules. And when we make the rules, we don't want civil servants, senior civil servants, to come and change them. or to put their own interpretation on them to deny people their rights. It has to stop. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, sir, I promised that I was going to speak for 10 minutes. And, oh, I got 5 more? And I get passionate about these things because I see it, you know, I've been through it. I was a temporary officer for 10 years, one of the best officers. I caught people try to bribe me, and I report them and all kind of stuff, and I get rewarded, I get transferred. I never thought about that. A man came to my house one day, I was an immigration officer. A man came to my house and offered me a car and all kind of money and things. And I reported him. No, I get transferred. You know? But that's what I'm telling you. So I get passionate about these things because I see what happens.
Passion is not rewarded then.
No, it doesn't. But I still wouldn't get corrupt. You know? So we see it. And who do it? Not politicians. Politicians find out about it. These are senior civil servants who become lord and master or lord and mistress. Depends on who it is. We need to follow the rules. When we don't follow the rules, we get anarchy. And the civil service now is reaching that point where everybody does what he likes. Things vary from department to department. The rules are not uniform about the place. It depends on who is the head of the department. You know, I have situations where officers complain that the head of the department refused to give them the leave that the Prime Minister said that they must have when they're locked down for COVID. People who have diabetes and hypertension and stuff, who had these chronic conditions, and so they said that they should get leave. We have one chairman of a board who tell the school board who refused to give the staff member. I brought him, let him know that he's flying past his nest. I said, you can't countermand the Prime Minister's order. We have an acting permanent secretary who said, I know I'm going to call for you, I can't work. Prime Minister gave instructions. But we have senior civil servants that decide, I ain't paying you the mind. And what happened to that senior civil servant? Nothing. What happened to the chairman? That refused to give, as a matter of fact, the principal of the school did not roster the person because of the Prime Minister's instructions. Because the person is supposed to come to work. And the chairman said, well, you can't work, I take no vacation. So that was an issue that somebody had to fight. Because we have too many bullies walking about in the public service doing what they like. There needs to be training not only at the lower level, but at the senior levels in the public service. Because we have some very well qualified people in their discipline. But some of them don't qualify to be human. And they don't treat people well. You know? So you need to give them that kind of training so that they will treat people, or they will know how to treat people. But I'm the boss, so I'm going to behave as I like, and I can do what I like, and ignore the rules. Mr. President, I hope, sir, having said all of that, that some of them will be listening and amend their ways, follow the rules, follow the general orders. Case in point, I speak to this all the time. The general orders at 524.1 says that you are entitled to sick leave, extension of sick leave on full pay for up to 6 months. But if you are still sick after that 6 month period, you are entitled to up to another 6 months if the doctor certifies that with more sick leave, you'll be ultimately fit for work. So that happens. You know, the people decide, well, I'm going to give you half pay. There's nothing in the law that says sick leave on half pay. There's nothing. But civil servants decide, I'm going to penalize persons from getting their full pay. And why you get the pay I talked about earlier, you get a year from national insurance, and you're not paid for national. You don't pay national insurance contribution for that, so you don't get it. So if you don't get full pay from the government, or you get half pay, or somebody to give you extension of sick leave, or no pay. Now if you get no pay and you can't get national insurance, what will happen to you? But these are things that civil servants implemented. This is not what the law says. You know, extension of sick leave on full pay. We're doing it. There are other issues, sir, and I realize that my 10 minutes is almost up. So I will rest for now, but I just want to say one last thing about people being given low days. I had reason to write to our government department last week because they were not, these public officers were not being paid their overtime. And they're telling them, oh, we can use some of your low days. You can't carry low days in that Cape Shepherd or Popular. So I want my money. And the law says that you must pay people in legal tender for work actually done. So they actually work. And you got to pay them. Sir, I'm obliged to you. I realize that my time is out, so I will pause here for now. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I will be extremely brief.
You?
Yeah, very brief. Mr. President, 99% of the time when a young man or a young woman, walks into a government office, that person does so as a temporary officer. All it means is that that person can be dismissed at a day's notice. In fact, I don't know if it happens now, but I remember when that particular letter to the person used to say, in the actual words, that you may be dismissed at a day's notice. In other words, there is no security of tenure whatsoever. There is no guarantee that you will have a job next month. And sir, don't care how conscientious you are, you can be sent home at a day's notice. And those people, I agree with you, that those people who go in at the beginning with that letter saying you can be dismissed at a day's notice, they worked in a very conscientious manner because that hangs over their head and they work and work and work. The hard thing about it is that you could very well be in that temporary position and work at that temporary level for 8 years and 13 years and so on before you are actually appointed. And I'm sorry to say, sir, that I have also learned this particular lesson, that as soon as some persons get appointed, they relax. That they work to impress, but once they get that appointment, they relax. And you want to know if this is the same person who used to be so conscientious and so hardworking. Might be exhausted. Sir, when you are appointed, obviously, government would anticipate that same high standard which you had early displayed. In fact, by appointing you, I'm sure that government even expect a higher standard than before. And sir, this is why I hold fast to the view that even after you have been appointed in the civil service, that your work, your standard of work should still be appraised. Some people are comfortable and they just want the appointment. Being a temporary worker, I understand it, sir. It can be very uncomfortable, a most uncomfortable feeling. It worries you a lot. It can be tough on those persons mentally, because you know that you are going to be one of the first to go when the whole downsizing plan comes around. On the other hand, Mr. President, appointment guarantees you a job. It guarantees you some security of tenure. I know, Mr. President, of persons who took out loans to do something to their house the very week that they got appointed. So you could imagine it was something that they were looking forward to for many a year. So, Mr. President, I am very happy that in this public service general order bill that we have, the resolution, that government is trying to make wrong things right. Mr. President, I never agreed with that description of public servants, which the Right Excellent Earl Walton Barrow had bestowed on them. He called them an army of occupation. I never agreed with that. Never. It is a description which few have challenged, not because of what he said, or not because what he said was true, but I think they didn't challenge it because of who it was that made the statement. Some have the attitude, if Barrow says so, it's so. And therefore, some persons took it as an absolute truth that our public servants were indeed an army of occupation. I never believed it. Sir, our public service should not be judged by those 5% or 10% of shirkers, non-workers, loafers, slackers, malingerers, call them what you will. Our public servant should never be judged by that 5 or 10%. In every organization, Mr. President, you are going to find persons who are not pulling their weight, and the civil service obviously is no exception. But I say again that we should not belittle our entire public service because of that 5 or 10%. These are not, those 5 and 10%, they are not public servants. They are not civil servants. They are what my grandmother used to call eye servants. Eye servants. And so there may be a significant difference between those who work in the private sector and those who work in the public sector. In as much as those loafers that I have referred to in the private sector may be fired more easily than the ones who work in government. So you may be able to loaf and to malinger in the government service and still keep your job. Sir, I was, and perhaps you can still say I am, a politician. And therefore I can speak mainly from experience. Let me admit that politicians, Mr. President, must carry some blame for what happens in the public service, especially when it comes to the attitude adopted by the very 5 and sometimes that 10%. Politicians are known to have sent from maids to matrons, from handymen to headmasters, and pushed a political door for them in the public service. I had the experience, Mr. President, of sending a young lady from St. Philip to work at a particular place. And within a week, the very minister who had told me to send her this place, he was in charge, and he called me and said, "You send a lady over there," and she gave him bare trouble. And she got an attitude, man. She got an attitude. She telling the people out there, Cappy Greenwiches, who sent me here. You know, and if you all try to do anything, I'm going to the minister. I'm going to the minister for you. I read the right after her. And I let her know exactly what the position is. I don't curse, but I don't think I use a bad word, but I use some very muscular language. And, sir,
You're withholding the wording of that act from us.
yes, in about 2 years or so, she became a supervisor out there, and she the attitude changed completely. And I think we need some more of that. That when you send people to work in these places, that you can let them know exactly what the business is. Because, in fact, sir, the ones sent by the politicians may be the very ones who give the public service a bad name. So, sometimes, Mr. President, we have to pause and we have to forget those 5 or 10%. We have to forget them. And my main reason this evening, as I address the Senate, is to say that we must never forget those public servants who do an excellent job. Sir, we must never forget those public servants who go beyond the call of duty. We must never forget, Mr. President, those who work a 12-hour day. We must never forget, Mr. President, those who work each and every Saturday without extra pay. We must never forget, Mr. President, those who are only able to do their desk work in the office on Saturdays because during the week they are too busy interfacing with the public. Sir, we must never forget those who do not take a lunch break. We must never forget, sir, those who work at their desks in the office until 7 p.m. at nights. Yes, when the office is closed at 4 and 4:30, they remain until 7. And we must never forget, sir, those who work at more than one desk to make sure that the office runs smoothly. Yes, Mr. President, I know persons who only question in the office, the only thing you hear them asking is how many more sick days I have. I know of those. But sir, what about those who go to the doctor and who get a sick certificate but still come to work? We must never forget those, sir. And surely, those ones that I have mentioned cannot be called an army of occupiers. Sir, I'm coming home. Sir, I have no problem with individuals speaking in glowing terms about our politicians and what they have contributed. But I want to make the point, Mr. President, that we would never be where we are today were it not for the hard work of our public servants. We have benefited in this island tremendously from their advice, from their wisdom, their dedication, and their commitment to Barbados. A few days ago, I was reading in one of the local papers where Dr. Greenwich, I'll call his name, I can call it, I have permission to call it. And he was saying that our public servants had contributed significantly. They had subscribed to the BOSS program. And yes, many of them would have done it to make an extra dollar perhaps, but many of them did it for the love of their country. He's not related to me, but he's a Greenwich. So, sir, politicians might have gotten a lot of the praise, but the civil servants did a lot of the donkey work. A lot of the donkey work. The politicians might have added, sir, a few bricks to our national structure, but all that foundation work was done by the civil servants. And sometimes, sir, we only could pause in this very building. And we know the pressure that we have put the clerks and so on under to get certain matters before the House of Assembly and before the Senate by a certain time to meet a deadline. And we know that sometimes at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, they are still at work. Can we call them, sir, an army of occupation? Sir, in this region, Barbados is admired for many arms of its government. People admire us for our national independence scheme, for the customs and the school meals, international business, Mr. President, educational standards, the hospital, and that list is too long, too long. But there are many things for which this country is admired. But, sir, at the end of the day, it is the public servants, it is the teachers, it is the nurses, it is the immigration officers to whom this country owes a great debt of gratitude. And we must be grateful, sir, for their guidance. I'm winding up, sir. Sir, the thrust towards public sector reform, that thrust, sir, was an excellent idea. And I would dearly love to see the rebirth of some of the issues that came out of public sector reform. I believe, sir, that there should be a few more incentives within the public sector. I remember the days when you used to have plaques and you have Employee of the Month and Employee of the Year, and you had certificate of appreciation and so on as a recognition to civil servants for their hard work. I think, sir, that such would still be a very good incentive to those who are and to those who are not pulling their weight. I think it would be a way to encourage public servants to give of their very best. So, sir, we can perhaps look and see where we went wrong in public sector reform, because that particular incentive program suffered because of the internal politics in every organization in government, every government department. All you used to hear is who should get and who shouldn't get, who did not deserve, and how come I got left out, and so on. But it was an excellent initiative, and I think, sir, that the baby was thrown out with the bathwater. Mr. President, I see that index finger of yours again pointing at me. So I will close by simply saying I support this resolution.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I thank all honourable members who contributed to this debate, and I now beg to move that this resolution to approve the Public Sector General Order 2020 do now pass.
The question is that this resolution before us to approve the Public Service General Order 2020 do now pass. Honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The resolution is now being passed.
Order number 4, sir. In the name of Senator the Honourable K. McConney, to move the passing of a resolution to approve the Public Service Teachers Amendment Order 2020.
Thank you, Mr. President. In considering this resolution, we know that 63 teachers, 53 from primary and 11 from secondary, would now be appointed under Section 13.7, 13.7 of the order. I now beg to move that this resolution do now pass.
Yes, the question is that the resolution to approve the Public Service Teachers Amendment Order 2020 do now pass. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. The resolution is now being passed.
Mr. President, this brings us to the end of our business for today. I beg to move that this city be now adjourned until next Wednesday, the 5th of August at 11 a.m.
At this session of the Senate, we now adjourn until next Wednesday at 11:30 a.m.
11.
At 11 a.m., sorry. Honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. And we now stand adjourned until next Wednesday at 11 a.m.